One way of looking at Scripture is through the lens of analogy. This is a common way that the fathers of the church would interpret Scripture. Not negating the truth of the reality of that situation occurring, but recognizing there was something more that the Lord wanted to teach than just a historical representation of the actual experience. And so, if we want to look at the very first paragraph, the healing of Simon's mother-in-law, and look at it from an analogical perspective, it might give us some insight into our own life. This fever, this illness that Simon's mother-in-law had, crippled her. It kept her from being able to do what she wanted to do, being a person of service. If we think of fever, fever is something as an elevated temperature. And we can think of this analogously and say, what if this is a preoccupation with something in our spiritual life? Preoccupation with a disorder that is a preoccupation. And in this perspective, let's look at that first reading. And what was the preoccupation of the people whom Paul and Apollos ministered to? They were preoccupied with jealousy and rivalry. That doesn't happen to us these days, does it? No, of course it does. We're human. This happens. But looking at it from perspective within a church, and sometimes people within parishes will be focused on a certain rivalry with another parish. Of course, as Catholic churches, as Catholics, we believe in the universal church, and we believe that we're all part of the local church, the Diocese of Dallas, and so we need to root out any kind of rivalry that we have with other parishes. Instead, rejoice in the good that is happening in those other parishes, as they likewise rejoice in the good that's happening in ours. Oftentimes there's this idea of this is the kingdom of St. Mark, and the kingdom of St. Paul or the kingdom of St. Jude might be a threat to the kingdom of St. Mark. That's like a fever that is a preoccupation that keeps us from doing what we're supposed to be doing. Another way of looking at it is within a particular parish. Sometimes ministries or groups will have jealousy and rivalry with each other. That never happens at St. Mark either. So the young adults with the youth, or this particular movement versus that movement in the church. This is something that happens. And once again, it's like a fever, that preoccupation, disorder that keeps us from being able to rejoice in each other and collaborate with each other for the building up of the kingdom. It actually hurts and injures the church, that jealousy and rivalry. So what do we look to that gospel for? Well, Jesus laid hands on Simon's mother-in-law, and the fever immediately left her. When we allow Jesus to enter into that jealousy and rivalry, when we then can see the good that he's doing through us and rejoice in that, then the disordered preoccupation will leave us, and we will again be free to serve.